Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I think you know the drill. Let's take 30 seconds, just introduce yourself. Mesbah?
I'm Mesbah, co-founder of Circularise. Circularise is a decentralized protocol for supply chains, and not only simple supply chains, as we know from other initiatives. We are specifically focusing on an industry shift, which is called the circular economy, and we're enabling information sharing across a complex supply chain of many tiers. We've been operating for about 2 years now, and are based in Amsterdam and Holland.
Right. And have you, sorry, just one quick question. So have you guys went through any form of like corporate accelerator program or anything?
Yeah, so we started off with the incubator in Delft.
Okay.
We're a spin-off from the university there. There's a accelerators, a top tier university-related accelerator called Yes Delft, and we did the acceleration program over there. Had a lot of corporate meetings, etc. So we have had quite the experience with corporates in the past years.
Because corporates are also kind of like a sounding board, mentorship, etc., as well.
Yeah, all
partnerships, etc. Okay.
All of it. Yeah.
Right. Soravis?
Cool. Hi guys, I'm Soravis. So we are a Bangkok-based project. So I'm local. We are a blockchain project working on data curation protocol. That means we want to curate the best data on the blockchain, right? And that's maybe something not familiar to most people, but we do work a lot with corporates in terms of, I think there's a lot of interest, at least in Thailand and I think around the world, for corporates to enter the blockchain space, but they don't have the know-how. Fortunately, we are one of the few projects in Thailand, so we have a lot of, I guess, experience.
Very quickly, you just mentioned that a lot of them are interested in the blockchain space. Why? Is it because Bloomberg says so, or is it because somebody has a better understanding?
Yeah, I guess.
Off the record, I won't ask you which corporate.
Quite unfortunate, but I think obviously a combination of headline and price, right? So I think last
because
year,
basically they think that their stock can essentially go from $5 to $20,000.
That too, and I think because it's becoming the buzzword, right? Just like the AI and the machine learning, right? They don't really understand it, especially the guy at the top. So they usually just assign somebody and say, hey guys, we got to do something on blockchain. Even the bank, right? You guys got to do some blockchain, go figure out, right? And that's sort of what we're doing as well in terms of educating people in this space. Yeah.
Right. When you say educating, what exactly do you mean by educating? Like how does that whole process actually take place?
Wow. So
it's like, no, it's because the reason why I ask this question is because there's a lot of people who keep saying, yeah, I've got a meeting with this bank, I've got a meeting with IBM, I've got whatever it is, but it's like, what is it the educational process actually takes place?
A lot of meetings, and it usually just start with what is blockchain actually? What's the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrencies? And unfortunately, again, a lot of the discussion usually navigate toward what is Bitcoin and how can we make money from it, right?
Like Bitcoin and blockchain are the same thing. Everybody knows that, right? Kidding.
Yeah. So I think we unfortunately spend a lot of time trying to educate people just on the fundamental, a lot of meetings, just to get them to understand the fundamental first, because without that understanding, obviously, then you cannot apply the technology to the business, right?
Thanks.
So, hi guys, I'm Kaweewut. I'm from SCB, Siam Commercial Bank. I actually just joined the bank 3 months ago, so I don't consider myself as a banker yet. And so I'm a head of one of the innovation team there. And also my work is I'm actually a product team, but I do a lot of work on kind of partner with startups and also work closely with the VC team there. So I have exposure to the VC work before joining SCB. Yeah.
When you say partnering with startups, can you give us some examples of the partners, of the startups you've partnered with so far?
Yeah.
Or like the kind of partnerships, is it more of an R&D partnership or is it an actual product partnership?
Yeah, so basically I think what most of the partnership that's happened, maybe it's not the names, but trying to get their technologies to doing the proof of concept. And when I say partner, I think it's like a big word, right? So that's doing a proof of concept first, whether the technologies is fit with can serve our customers, so doing a small projects. And then think about doing a bigger chunk of using the service, and then talking about a business model, how can we partner, and then investing can be along the way. So when I say partnership, I think mostly it's starting by doing a very small kind of 10 weeks projects together to kind of prove that the technologies can serve our customers. So everything starting from the pain, what are some of the pain that we want to fix, and then we start scouting for technology. Yeah.
So how does an organization as big as SCB?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's like if anybody actually goes to SCB's main office, they really have like a whole island on their own or something like that. It's like you don't even need self-sustenance. You get everything from Sizzle to 7-Eleven there, and Starbucks. I think the Starbucks is still there. But like, how exactly does it work? Like, it's such a big organization with so many different departments, with so many different, I mean, just compliance takes up God knows how many floors and everything. And if you're talking about like supply chain and everything like that, or even from an accounting perspective, like, how do you even know where, as so-called, person in charge of innovation, where exactly do you look at where needs innovation? Like, let's use these two gentlemen as examples, right? Where exactly does that, how exactly do you find that gap and everything?
Okay, so, I mean, I have experience working before the banking as well. I work in a very big corporates in energy industries. So basically the way it works is sometimes corporates they start by initiating a separate team. So normally they call it a venture. It could be venture capital or just venture, but basically a team who want to do new things. And most of the time they get some budgets to explore and also invest in the corporates, right? So those are some one thing. So they start having a small chunk of money of VC funds to start investing and also bringing the startups inside the company. And those entities, my advice is if you find those entities basically they can speak, they should be able to speak a startup language. So that's like bridge one side. And those entities normally have to work to bring those technologies to the company. And another job that this function as ventures needs to do is to talking to the business units. And one thing that only one question that they ask the business unit is that what is your biggest pain point? So everything starting from finding a customer pain point first, and then technology later. So if you have this so good ventures team normally have this kind of backlog of the pain point. And then we prioritize it, and then we start looking out for technology. So it's not technology first, it's always about what are the problems we're trying to solve first, and then if you have that collection, it can be a number of meetings, but we need to find those lists. And then we start going out to the world to asking for help.
So hold that thought there for a minute, right? Just to counter this, Joe, either Mesbah or Soravis can take this, right? Essentially, the blockchain industry is so new, right? Essentially, it's raw, literally, right? Like, we don't have enough devs, we have too many advisors, we just, there's just not enough real people that actually does the real work, right? Let's just be honest with each other, right? How would you convince like a corporate, whether it's at SCB or anybody you're working with, how do you convince them that instead of wasting your resources to build something yourself on the blockchain, that they should be working with you? And, like in this case, me, SCB or anybody for that matter. No.
I think I could not agree with what you just said more. I mean, and as well, the industry is looking into technology, and then applications second or pain points second, which doesn't make sense. So I think I already mentioned this before to you, like, when we have corporate meetings, we try to avoid talking blockchain, talking crypto as long as possible. At some point, that will be important, but it all starts with, this is the pain points that we've been seeing. Do you recognize them? If so, this is our solution. So you're trying to look at the product market fit. And once there is a viable fit, then you can start talking into the more details, like, so this is what we do with blockchain, this is where crypto might come into play, what might not come into play. So I generally like these conversations a lot better, because we've had the wrong conversation as well, and it always ends up at either just hype building and actually nothing in action, just a lot of talks. But these kind of connections and meetings, that's where you actually can get the partnerships that matter and actually build your business further into the future.
So just to follow up on that, since Mesbah's already answered Soravis, so is that corporates, they are the way, so I mean, that's the title of the topic, just in case people just join us, but like, going mainstream, corporates play a very important part. Yes or no?
Sorry, what's that?
Corporates play an important part in going mainstream.
Oh, for sure, because I think that's where the customers are, right? That's where the mass adoption is going to come from. And I think just to add to the point, I think we talk a lot about pain point and all that, but ultimately, what do business care? Business care about profit,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
And that's essentially, you either have to increase their revenue somehow, or you have to decrease their costs, right? Whether that be their supply chain, whether that be about how they store your data, about cross-border payment, right? Ultimately, it's about either one of that. So I think a lot of our conversation try to focus on that, meaning, again, not mention anything about blockchain, but talk about what is your cost base, right? What is the problem with your company, right? Or what are your source of revenue? How can we increase that and maybe utilize part of this technology to help with that, right? I think that's where our main focus is. Because I think a lot of corporates still don't talk a lot about pain point. But I think ultimately the goal is when you solve the pain point, you either increase your revenue or you decrease the cost, right? That's the angle we
But
should
essentially, if you're talking about pain points to a lot of corporates, a lot of businesses, right? The question here is that why do I need a blockchain solution? There is an existing app, enterprise software, whatever, that existingly is out there. Why do I need a blockchain? You're adding another, I mean, like what you mentioned, right? Is that at first you talk about the problem, talk about the solution, et cetera, then you talk about the blockchain and the need to actually tokenize, that particular problem, for example, right? But what if they just say that, you know what, this is too complicated, screw it. I'm just going to go with, I don't know, okay, the first example that comes to my mind, Evernote, for example, right? Why that? Why put it on the blockchain? Right? Like, what would be the way to actually convince, and why do you actually see it? Because I think from a solution provider perspective, like I gave the example, right? Like Stellar, IBM partnership, Dropbox, AWS, and everything. Those are very clear. But when you talk about pain points, it's a totally different thing. All right? This is a direct thing we're trying to solve. We're actually trying to provide a service, via a partnership instead.
Yeah. I think in our case, it's mostly in a way also driven by some of the innovations that blockchain enables, which you simply cannot do with any other technology. So I'm talking about, making things more decentralized so it can happen between a number of parties. You can create trust.
Simultaneously.
Or you can have in a previous situation where you have 100 points of trust, you can downscale that just to one or two points of entry into that blockchain system, and then it's trustless. So there are a number of technological advancements and possibilities that blockchain delivers, which you simply cannot do. And one of the things that we live by as a startup is that if you can do it with a centralized solution, you should do it.
Yep.
Right? Else there is no point in using a technology that is similar to the current centralized version, if that's the case, because blockchain is so in its infancy, it's so complex and it adds so much overhead. So if it's not necessarily really needed in exactly that situation, you shouldn't use it. Not at this point. Yeah.
Interesting that you say so. Kaweewut, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah. So I think when you think about the use case, is very important. Why blockchain? That is something that need to be clear why, because you starting from customer pain point again, like what is the pain, right? And then when you're talking about something that can serve them, it could relate it to the cost, for example. If it's blockchain, or let's say use case of the remittance, which is very obvious, right? If you can use a blockchain decentralized, it should be safer, faster, cheaper. By the concept, it can be doable. Just a matter of can you get everyone together. But it's very clear if you can implement that, it should be faster, cheaper, better for customers, right? So that's clear, just a matter of implementation. That's one thing. And another thing when you talk about blockchain, and you will be a little bit more visionary, like you talk about peer-to-peer lending, right? And that can be doable by blockchain as well.
Yep.
It's just a matter of regulation, the timing of the market, right? Technology is there. I think now technology for peer-to-peer lending for blockchain is there. It's just a matter of whether the market is ready, whether it's educated enough, whether the regulation's ready. So we'll keep monitoring those kind of things. So it's just a matter of, as a corporate, we need to be very, very clear why. And yes, definitely, when I see the blockchain decentralized model, normally is to get the systems faster, cheaper, and safer, hopefully.
When you say monitoring, it kind of leads up to my next question as well. What are you waiting for? When you say monitoring is a politically correct, but to say we're sitting down here, we're waiting.
So I think, to be precise, when you say monitoring, mostly day-to-day, like monitoring technologies, which I think now is there somehow. We just need to find the right person, right company, But another thing is we monitor the market, whether they're ready, whether they're ready to take that solutions, whether it's too much, too challenging right now to kind of start educating the market. And another thing is the regulation, which is keep following the operators. So those three things, I think, if you need to come into, especially the banking industry, I think those are something that we need to keep monitors all the time, not just technology.
Understand. All right. Talking about that, it's like, like regulations and everything like that. Do you think there is a firm, like what, if you could, like Soravis, for example, like what would be two improvements you would hope to see with regards to this? Like what would you see that improvements with regards to, making more corporate and startup engagements or corporate and blockchain projects engagement actually happen?
Okay, meaning how can we improve this?
Yeah.
I
How
guess,
can we improve
relationship?
this whole chemistry, basically?
Right. I think a lot of the corporate start to demand to see real applications.
Yep.
Right. Of give me example of what other projects around the world have been doing, and I think that's what we try to give them. And actually, a good example is this company called Nexus, which is like one of the actually VC firm in another country. Basically, they organize this event where they gather all the corporates, big corporates like Samsung, all the big corporates in Korea, and they bring blockchain project with actual applications, with actual use case, with actual benefit, right, to showcase them for the entire day. And I think that was a huge success among corporates, and because they finally get it, right? It's not about saying the word blockchain, but it's about seeing that number or seeing that actual use case. And I think that's what we actually, us as well as them, trying to organize that in Thailand and hopefully around the world as well. I think that's again part of the education that we're also emphasizing.
Interesting. Such things happen in Europe as well?
Yeah, maybe on a bit of a different level. So when we explain the protocol or whatever technology stack that we have, it quickly comes back to this example thing again. So, okay, that's all great, but what can I do with it? Like, what's the example? What's the benefit for me, right? And once you go through this cycle a few times, and you can actually start providing them these examples, you start diminishing that technology stack to the background. Like then it's all about the benefit and the example by using the specific technology. So yeah, like on a different level, it's a very similar conversation that we're having with corporates as well.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, I think that's the way we approach corporate as well. Meaning when we talk to them, right, we bring them real example. We try to dig into the business and then try to give them example because that's the only way they can relate to the actual solution. Because if you say blockchain, you say DLT, they don't understand that, right? Even if you try to explain it, they will not understand it.
It's
right?
too abstract.
Yeah.
So based on this, conversations are happening. Like obviously education is happening. We all agree on that. Interest is also growing as well. Reality. And Kaweewut, it's like, how long before this just becomes a reality? When do you think you see the first such partnership actually happen? Like personal experience, right? It's like you're talking about like mobile penetration, right? You're talking about like literally like smartphone penetration, what, 8 years ago or something like that. It's like, nobody thought that you could do this with phones and everything like that, like push ads and everything, notifications and everything, right? You can't even do banking on a phone, right? I mean, people had it in their heads, but never happened. Like, when do you actually see like regardless, let's just say the regulations were to change tomorrow. Let's just say like blockchain is the best thing right now, and like everything's completely legal, protected, and there's a there's proper legal fallback framework and everything as well. When do you see like these partnerships actually coming to fruit? I mean, like what kind of timeline or roadmap are you guys looking at?
Yeah. I think in terms of corporates, we don't really see that's like when that's partnership going to happen, because the kind of partnership right now is if we see the real use case, and we can come back to talk about that later on. But just to give an example, actually SCB is an investor in Ripple.
Yep.
We invest in Ripple in 2016, and because the use case is so clear and the pain point, we are developing countries in Thailand. We have many people who's out there working, right? We need to help them. It's so clear. At that time, Ripple is a clear whether what they are doing, and when we talk to them, I think the technologies can help. So 2017, we're doing the first POC, and we're creating something real that people can actually try wire the money from overseas to Thailand. And this year, next, we are going to scale that. So basically, it can happen anytime. Corporates always looking for solutions. It's just a matter of communication channels, it's a matter of how startup actually know how to navigate the organization, which I basically, from my experience, I see the more mature startup that they try to, they're getting to learn more about how to deal with the startup. And at a very, very early stage, I think maybe probably working with corporate, it's one option, right? But there's a kind of boutique VC or advisors who actually can help them kind of groom the way they work with corporates. I think that is another options. And as they're growing, I think corporate's not good helping to groom startup to run the company, but corporate's good at give them insight in the industries, and so the use case, and also help them scale.
But that's also why SCB has a venture arm as well,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, and that is the goal of the venture arm. We are CVC, so corporate ventures, at the end of the day, it's all about the strategic decision, it's all about business goal. And so we have a big customer base, right? And if the technology is right, and right timing, and communication is clear, business model is clear, it can just happen just that. So it doesn't have to be like invest and then partners. It can be just getting to know each other. But that getting to know each other part, I admit that for big corporates, I think they need to provide a clear kind of door or window for a startup to come. Because mostly when I talk to startup, I think I actually empathize them because they come and talk to many people talk to them, technology talk, all those. But when it comes to making a decision, they end up talking to the wrong people and they're wasting their time. So actually, I think you should spend time talking around like, or maybe along the startup community, like this company who's actually the decision makers to kind of bring the startup in. And that door is very, very important. And normally, there's just one or two. It's not like everyone go to startup events and you talk and you kind of have a very happy talk and then you expect that send an email and they're not sending
business
back,
happens,
right? Because it's just not the right person.
Yeah, but it's something I see very often actually in Southeast Asia, where you see a lot of startups taking selfies with all these people and everything like that. And then the caption is always like, watch out here, partnership coming soon and everything. And you're like, 1 year later, you get these memories on Facebook where you say 1 year later, or Instagram, whatever it is. And it's like 1 year later, you'll be like, wait a minute, I saw this photo. What the hell is these guys? And it's like, nothing's happening, right? Which is, But the point of the example I give is that, like, there is, blockchain startups aside, blockchain projects aside, there's also this very lack of understanding. It's like a chemistry problem. There's a lot of problems with chemistry. For example, like you have startups, because it's just 3 guys, right? You guys make a decision like that, right? But a corporate's like, you've got a boss, the boss probably has a boss, you've got shareholders, you've got different departments, everybody to sync up and everything like that. And you've already got 2 colleagues falling sick and 1 who has a baby. So decision making is very hard. And in a way, there's always this feeling that both sides refuse to compromise and understand each other. So how do you, is there a way to solve it and make it better, or is it like, does anybody care really? What I'm trying to ask, to be more specific, is there anything that on your side you can do to bridge that gap?
That we can do?
Yeah, you can do.
It kind of depends on the startup's position and the situation you're in. I mean, if you have a runway and you can afford to, go walk that path with the corporate of decision, sure, you should do it. Try not to spend too much time on it because you need immediate business as well. But if you don't have that luxury, I would say it's really hard. Just talking doesn't deliver anything. Going to corporates and having their bosses, schedule another meeting. And I've had meetings where it's one of the biggest companies in the airline industry, and they were like, yeah, we can. It was January, and the next corporate meeting with them would be in November. So that's like, there's such a mismatch between.
And you were that confident they will still be around.
So the way they think and make decisions is so different than the way we make decisions and act that it simply doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, it kind of depends on the situation. What we can do is try to make it as simple, as easy as possible for them to make. Because if you're going to make it big and like you're going to change half of their operations, that's going to take even longer. So the simpler and easier you can make it for them, I think that's something we can work on, make it so simple that they can actually start deciding instead of having to waste months and months. Yeah.
So, on that note as well, so Soravis, do you think, in your opinion, you could do what you do without corporate partnerships or without any corporate help? You being your own business, you having the mindset of, I don't know, building the next, I don't know, Amazon or whatever it is?
I think it would be really difficult, obviously, to bootstrap everything from scratch right now, especially when you have a big incumbents in Thailand or around the world, right? I think it's really difficult to build that without good partnership. And I do agree that if you don't have the right network, it is extremely difficult for you to do that. Fortunately, though, because blockchain became the buzzword last year, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of attention being paid to the industry. So a lot of time, if you hustle enough, you will find the right network. So for example, we work with one of the biggest publicly listed company in Thailand. And I don't know them personally at first, but I do try to network, try to buy friend of friends, and just mention, hey, we are doing blockchain, we can save a lot of your money. They're a media company, so we say, media is dying, so now they pay attention. So then I got into, basically a business meeting with all the founders, all the CEOs, all the board members, just like that, right?
It's also a timing thing as well.
It's timing as well, and I think at least for the blockchain industry, even though the price can, it's not what we want to be, I think there's still a lot of attention being paid to the industry. So you keep building both your product and your network. I think you can get there. Yeah, you just need to find the right people, and like he said, right? If you waste your time talking to the lower people, I think that will waste your time and it will not go anywhere.
And you'll be basically stuck in limbo and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think with corporates, generally speaking, is that if you can get them to understand, they are ready-made partners. They have the network, they have the money, obviously, and they have probably the distribution that essentially can help you take. Obviously, in return, you probably have to give up some form of ownership, but if the business model is such that such partnerships actually work. We've got a little bit of time left. Just wanted to ask, and I'll probably ask the audience for a couple of questions, but how about some examples of like what can we expect from, individually from the three of you, given your various roles, various businesses you're doing, what can we expect to see in the next 6 months from everyone? Mesbah?
We're right now in a stage where we're deploying a number of pilots, working on our product that's going to be ready in the coming months, so we can actually put it out there and get these numbers. Like we're talking about, what can you save, or what kind of revenue can you create there. So we expect to have these numbers in a number of industries, like let's say within a year. After deployment in the coming months. So yeah, that's going to be a really interesting time where you.
So the next 6 months is really getting ready, shipping, deploying.
Exactly. Yeah. So start shipping, start actually like quantifying the value that you're creating, and not be focused on doing an ICO or doing that's not where you once you can prove that, once you can actually be on the market, have the products out there, that's where you can then turn and do the things that most of the industry right now is focused on, is raising funds. So I think it should be flipped, which is generally what's happening in the traditional startup world. So yeah, we're approaching that in that same direction.
Understand. Good.
Yeah.
Soravis?
Agree with that. I think go back to your question as well. What do we see in terms of the development between startup and corporate, right, and the blockchain industry? I believe that 2019 will be the true battleground. At, how can we bring this to mass adoption? How can we showcase the actual use case, I guess, of the blockchain.
And I think as a whole, the industry, it's about time the industry delivers as well, right?
That's right. And that's the reason why we see this price action as well, right? Because I think same as the .com crash, where people now see, hey, no company actually deliver anything, right? So in 2019, for us, and I think for a lot of the companies, are focusing on delivering proof of concept, and trying to at least produce something that has value to either the end customers or to the business itself, right? And that's what we internally focus on, and that's why we talk a lot to the corporates. We try to get insight into the industry and approach this again essentially as a startup, not as a money machine and spend money on market making, exchange listing. We don't focus on that or marketing advisor. I don't know. Yeah. Now we're focusing on building the product.
You're not looking out there for like 50 advisors on your board.
That's right. That's right.
Just,
Our homepage
just 20 is enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to confirm. And listing on like
we just need one good
two
guy.
exchanges, not instead of 50 as well. Okay. Kaweewut?
Yeah, so we're expect next year we probably want to launch a product related to international transfer that help people.
You
in the
guys are
region.
testing some, I mean, you guys are already testing you and everything. So in the next 6 months, is like, will it come to fruit? Like, will it be available to X number of clients, or how is it? Like,
You mean in terms of the new service, or?
yeah, the new service. Sorry.
I don't have a number right now, but it's definitely we are doing some POC with the people in Japan last year, and for this year we expect to scale that in a regional level and a global level. So expect to launch some kind of new service in the next 6 months.
Right. And side question as well. You're just a guy who looks at innovation. Is there anything particularly in the blockchain space, I mean, given besides the Ripple stuff, right? What else in the industry excites you? What would you be looking for? What are the type of projects or startups that would interest you, that you think?
Yeah, I think personally, when you're a local bank here in Thailand, the thing that excites us the most is where the problem is, right? And people in Thailand now, I think, maybe half of those is bank, half of them is non-bank.
Unbanked.
So how can you leverage technologies to help them to get more access to finance? So that's like always a big problem, because in terms of, it's a good business problem as well, right? So you get more customers. And I believe blockchain has a place there in terms of when you're talking about peer-to-peer lending, we're talking about how you can get their money to kind of spread around much more efficient and more effective. Blockchain definitely somewhere's there. So I think that there's a big market there. It's just a matter of regulation, a matter of business models, and also technologies that come together somehow in the future. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So in conclusion, I can all say that, at least for the four of us, is that corporates play a very important part in helping bring the industry mainstream. Right. Okay, I've got one last question. But before that, does the audience or anybody have any questions for the panel? Going once, going twice. Okay, done.
Can I ask, actually?
Yeah.
Are you guys using XRP for?
No, I don't think so.
See.
Yeah, so I think it's a very, very typical, they have a service that's been usable and very stable there. Yeah.
Okay. All right, last question. Very quickly, just in one sentence, wishes for the industry for 2019.
Sorry?
Wishes for the industry. What do you hope
Wishes.
What do you hope will happen in 2019 for the industry?
Scalability.
Scalability.
Yeah, definitely. No.
Mass adoption, yes, actual use case.
Same lah.
Yeah.
Kaweewut?
New use case?
Use cases,
Yeah,
real
yeah.
use cases. Right.
I mean, like, I would like to see kind of blockchain communities and, kind of having more kind of real use case when you
Same.
talk business kind of starting with or probably trying to solve, and then talking business. Because what I say, I mean, I can share a bit about this, about like how we can work together as a corporate and startup better. I think the first thing is empathy. It's very, very important, because I actually work in the between. I actually bring startup in and I actually get a pain point from the business unit, right? And normally it's like when I say, startup will always tell me like you're too slow, right? And the corporate's like, you're too fast, right? And I was like, okay, I'm still trying to striking on those balance. But the one thing that's very, very, very important is that in terms of startup communities, I think corporates they're big for a reason. One day they used to be very small as well. They used to be startup before, right? And at that time when they're kind of pivoting, or do all this iteration, they're slow. But then they find that market, they find that product market fit, and they just scale it. And I just read the books that Reid Hoffman just launched in Thailand for a bit, called Blitz Scaling. So basically, when you're small, yeah, you're fast, right? But when you start having this kind of profit-making machine, and which is good, right? You need a process and structure to cope with that, right? So that is normal corporates, right? It's not that they are slow, It's just low for reasons because they're already up to that level, so that they're, but yes, those corporates now they're struggling with inventing new things because of that structure. And then I think that they try to implementing, experimenting many things in terms of organization. They spin out the company, they're doing, there are some efforts that they're trying to do that, but it's just a matter of they're still experimenting it. I think in this world, big corporates still trying to figure out how they can work with startup better. But just to the empathy is on the startup side that the corporate still, the 20 years, they have been doing this for a while, and now the disruption come. Definitely the change for them is significant, but it's just the way, they have a 10, just imagine you have 10,000 people in your organization, and how do you cope with that when you want to change something? And I think they're still wrap their head around that every day. So it's not that they don't want to change, it's just a matter of when many people stay together.
Well, put it this way, so it's a good test for the startup you're going to partner, because in 3 months later, if they can't even wait 3 months to start working with you, then there's a problem. It means 3 months later, they don't have the cash flow and they're probably dead already, right? So if they can survive 3 months waiting for the next meeting, or in your case, like January waiting until November, waiting for the next meeting, that means like this is a real business because they're still sustainable, They appreciate the point of sustainability. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, just to add to when I say mass adoption, I think it means basically the actual use case of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as well in the day-to-day life, right? And one easy example is, I told you about this when I went to one of the banks in Thailand. I want to wire money from my own bank account to other people's bank account in the same bank, right? They charged me $40 for that. Right, for a MySQL change, basically. Right?
Not SCB.
Not SCB, but yes, other bank. It's the leading bank in Thailand, right? And I say, what the heck is this, right? It's my money. You just have to change, a number in your database. Why does it cost $40, right? And I actually literally opened a computer, showed them Ethereum, and hey, it's actually cheaper for me to wire Ethereum to other people, not even just in Thailand, but around the world, right? And they said, yeah, but it went from 1,000 to 200. So I'm like, okay, yep. I closed my computer, I pay $40, right? So I am personally excited to see how, I guess, industry progress, and hopefully we can actually see some actual use case and actually realize all this benefit that
Agreed. Agreed. I guess we're all in agreement on that. On account that we don't have any questions, I guess the audience is kind of in agreement of that. Other than that, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Really a pleasure having the three of you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.